It's 2 minutes past. I think it's probably an idea if we get going, because we've got quite a full agenda.
Yes.
So I did go through it this morning, and I think we can manage it if we're disciplined little bodies. So, hello everybody. Welcome to the public and to fellow councillors. I've got to ask if any member of the public wishes to record this meeting over and above the recording that we are doing. Do any of you wave if you do? No. Thank you. Public question time. Now, certainly with the Homley Library proposal, and I had an informal meeting earlier with one of the trustees, and I think the 3 minutes for the public would work better rather than their making a presentation, because there isn't actually a formal thing. It would be simply for when we get to it on the agenda for them to come in to be able to answer questions should we have them.
Yeah.
Is everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
Are the members of the public happy with that? Yeah. Would any of the other members of the public like their thing to be treated the same way, so that we, instead of you making a 3-minute presentation at the beginning, we go through the agenda? When we get to your bit, you simply are available for questions. Would anybody prefer that? You prefer that, Jim? David? Chris, are you happy with that?
I'm happy either way, yeah.
Well, in which case, and Dawn. Well, yours is going to be a section on its own anyway, Dawn, one way and another. But again, you may want it, we may want to just treat it as questions and answers rather than a formal presentation, unless you wish to make a formal presentation, do you?
No.
I was going to talk through the paper, but I'm happy to answer questions. Either way works for me.
Right, okay. I think therefore, if everybody's happy, we'll go through the agenda and deal with each of these as we get to them, rather than having a separate topic. Thank you. Have we any apologies for absence?
Liz is your officer of this.
Oh, sorry, Liz. Sorry. I forget. This is my IT. Do we have any apologies, Liz?
Doug says he's going to be a little bit late, and we've got apologies from Councillor Bellamy and Councillor Roberts.
Right.
And just to say that Judith Patrick isn't able to make it either. Well, she may be late or won't attend at all. Unfortunately, their previous meeting's overrunning, so I'm representing the civic.
Thanks, Dawn. And welcome, Mark, who's here to see what the committees do. Our newest councillor.
Thank you very much.
That's apologies. Any members with personal or pecuniary interests? Sean?
I'm a trustee with the Friends of Homley Library.
Right. You're a
It's a personal library.
Okay. Any other members? Any officers? Personal pecuniary interest? No. Any written requests for new DPI dispensation?
No.
No. Are there any items on the agenda that ought to be discussed in private session? I have to say I can't see any. Welcome, Doug.
Did you get my message?
Yes, just. Is there anything anybody feels should be discussed privately? No. Right, the minutes of the previous council meeting, we've all had a chance to see them, and they've been approved at full council, so it's really to note. Are they noted? Yes. Grant applications. Now, we have 14 minutes, and we have sort of 3 that need discussion and 1 thing to note and half a thing that I'm going to raise. So that is about 3 minutes per grant application. I would ask you, therefore, to be disciplined, please, people. The first one is Brockholes Village Hall, and briefly, they applied for and we agreed to money for the windows. They've now realised that the windows are fantastically pricey and won't have as big an environmental impact as some other things that they could do. They're asking, therefore, that we change the money as outlined here. You've all got the thing in front of you. Have I got that about right? Chris? Yes?
Yeah, agree.
So has anybody got any comments or questions to raise on this? Councillor Hodley.
I'm very supportive of their application. I think it's a good project to go ahead with. I think the only thing I'm a bit uncomfortable with is the sort of way in which we've got the assumption that the remaining money that happens to be associated with a different request would therefore be automatically earmarked. Yes, I think it shouldn't be like that. We're considering the grant application. We've notionally indicated we would support a particular project, which has obviously been changed, and that's fine. And I'm supportive of it, and I think we should support the cost of being asked for, which is £2,420. But I think then if they're looking for more funding next year, then that goes into our expression of interest consideration, which informs our budget for next year. I don't think we decide now to earmark that money.
I agree. I think, and I would ask all applicants to make a note of this, not just Buckles, that if, when we grant some money, it is for a specific purpose. It's not for a cause, if you like. So, strictly speaking, diverting it like this is not really what we would approve. I think, well, I'll take a vote in a minute as to whether we will this time. But strictly speaking, we should go back to the expression of interest stage, and but we'll come back to that because Councillor Carr.
Yeah, just to note, it looks like in the summary we actually decided against the replacement of the boiler. So we actually made it. That was one of the things on offer. We decided against the windows. So for them to ring-fence it for the boiler, just to back up what Councillor said and what you said, I just don't think we can see that. Well, it's unfortunate they can't use all the money. But this doesn't feel like how groundbreaking works.
Are you saying therefore that we should give the money for the lights but not the boiler, or are you merely making the comment?
Well, they're saying that their next venture is the boiler, but we'd already discussed the funding for the boiler and decided not to support that. It says on
But
that
did
first-
we, sorry, my memory is failing me here. Did we say we wouldn't support it because we wanted to support the windows, or did we say we wouldn't support it because we didn't support it? Councillor Dixon,
Yeah, I think that was the case. I think the windows were about 4,000 or something like that, 5,000. And then this was in addition above that, what we normally give out, about 5,000 each. So that's why we didn't approve the boiler one. It's not like we weren't in favour of the boiler. It's just that at the time we didn't approve it. So they've asked us now for the LED lighting and for the small water heater in the kitchen. I would like to go with what Rachel said, propose that we accept both of them, but the money goes back into the pot for everything rather than being reserved. And if they come forward with future plans in future, we review them on what merit they have. Like when the next funding window is it, or next?
September is the next consideration of expressions of interest, so they need to be in at least a week before the September meeting.
It goes back into the pot then, but I personally think that it's quite good to spread the money out across all groups, so some other groups come for it. We have to review what's in front of them, but we have time.
Right.
So yeah.
Is that a formal proposal, Councillor Dixon?
Yeah, do that right.
Do we have a second to that? We
Yeah.
have a second to Councillor East. Chris, before we move to a vote, is there anything you want to say?
David.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sorry, Chair. Can I couldn't quite pick up what the committee was saying, but just to explain, the water heater can be separated from the main boiler system. The main boiler system comprises of two boilers, and it's very complicated at the moment. We're almost in a stage with boiler systems as we were with electric cars about 5 years ago, where if you go out to the market, they're still proposing to put in gas boilers, even though things are going to start changing. So I've done a lot of research to look into this, and it looks as if we need to hold back at the moment. We would love to change it because it's inefficient. We can separate the water heater simply because it's in the kitchen, separate from the main boiler, and although the electricity cost may cost a little bit more for us, rather like the LED lighting, there's virtually no carbon footprint, and it's something that immediately can be applied, can be put in. And we've also got a water heater, unfortunately, that's broken down twice this year, and there are no longer any spare parts for it. So we're in a point of desperation to do it. Thank you.
We know enough to vote on now. Can I ask councillors to pull their masks down when they're speaking, since the public clearly can't hear?
I asked all the way.
Sorry, don't.
Can I ask, we didn't wear them, so you don't have to wear them when you sat down in the meeting.
No.
Just when you move them
Our
around, you have to
feeling
wear them.
was we should be an example to the public.
Yeah, but the last time the government's moving is basically around, it's how you stop doing the wind.
Well, anyway, at least whether you want to keep it on or not, can you take it down when you speak? Thank you. The gist, David, was people were saying, although we voted against giving money to the boiler last time, it wasn't because we didn't want to give money to the boiler, it was because we did want to give money to the boiler. That was the gist of what we were saying.
Yes.
Okay, I think we know enough to move to a vote, don't we? Can I see all those in favour of approving this? That's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Chair. I shall leave the meeting. Thank you.
Does anybody here from the Business Association? Do, right. I had, and again, this is not spelled out. I don't propose spelling it out to councillors. It's clear what they're after. I have one question that I quite like. I mean, is it worth our waiting to see how much Kirklees spend, rather than spending our money right now, and they might cover these expenditures anyway? What?
Basically, the quotation that we've had and the amount of money that we are looking at wanting to spend, Kirklees are saying that there's no way that their money will be able to raise that. They're saying that they have around 60 to 70,000, and our quote is 100 and odd thousand. So we're actually looking at raising some more funding through the community to go alongside any other funding that we manage to raise, because we don't want to do a piecemeal where part of the playground is sorted out, but we don't have anything for our elderly and we don't have anything for disabled. So we're actually wanting to add to Kirklees' funding to be able to make sure it's a one-stop shop rather than piecemeal, which is what it is at the moment.
Thank you. Do any councillors have queries, questions, problems? Councillor Black.
Yes, I just wanted to ask when this is all done and dusted and you've raised all the money, that who would actually own the equipment then? Because some of it's replacement of existing Kirklees equipment, isn't it? I just wondered about the ownership.
If we go in with Kirklees, then Kirklees are taking on the responsibility for future maintenance of it.
So legally they would be the owners of it, even though we've given some money, you've given some money and all the rest.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other, Councillor Dixon?
Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting one. This. I've been with the council 14 years, and during that time, before I joined the council, we did give money towards some play areas and things like that, going back a long time ago. But during that last 14 years, we haven't given money to like for play areas, and it's just if we are setting precedent here of giving 5,000 towards homeless play areas, there's plenty of other play areas within the valley as well, and will people want more money for their play areas as well and things like that? I just don't think, like strategic, this isn't something that the parish council has done before, and we've got limited budgets for what CAST is for and for what it's supposed to go for. I don't know if this is really within our remit of what we should give funding to. I'm not against play areas. I like play areas, all those things and things like that. But like this does seem like a very expensive play area. It's probably going to be an absolutely brilliant. It's probably very, very good. But I just don't know if we should provide the funding for it.
I understand the question, and I think you're right in your assumption that we will have loads and loads of applications in the next few years, but I think that's going to be from everybody, for everything, because public expenditure has been so eroded over the last X years, and particularly. Councillor Carr, then Councillor Hobley.
Yes. Yeah, that's similar concerns to Tommy. Kirklees Council's got more play areas than Leeds Council. We've got an unbelievable amount of players. It's very, very expensive. The council is in a really difficult situation now because there's obviously high expectations. And what's happening in a lot of areas, they're removing the play equipment as it deteriorates because they can't afford to replace it, they can't afford to maintain it. But I don't think we as a parish with £250,000 in our coffers in total are in a position to necessarily pick that up. The adult play gym is an interesting innovation, new different thing, although they have been tried in other places as well. Again, it's just a very similar situation to last time. We're flipping one application into another, and I do feel a bit uncomfortable about that. And I don't really think we'll get a huge amount from 120, and I don't think our 5,000 will make a lot of difference. So I am concerned about it, although I understand that they'd rather have, quality play over the people if that's possible.
Yeah, you're quite right. Our original favourable view was for an adult recreation area, wasn't it? For an outdoor gym for adults rather than for children's play. Councillor Hobley.
Yeah, I recognise the concerns being raised, but I think this is an opportunity to contribute to a scheme that's already of a certain size, if you like, and make sure it's as good as it can be, rather than, so yes, it's a contribution to something, rather than just a standalone thing. But I do think, we've said we want to encourage better youth provision, things for, to keep children and young people busy. And I do think that there's quite a lot within the proposal of the equipment involved with different age groups. It's not just about very young children, there's also for older children. And I think that fits quite neatly, actually, with the work we're trying to do to support Honley in terms of youth work.
Yes.
Because I think there is a need for people to have a space, a safe space to play as older kids, not just younger ones.
Yes.
So whilst I recognise the sort of regrettable situation that there may then be lots of other places that need or seek additional support, which ideally Kirklees would be a better place to provide, I actually think in this instance, there's going to be a project here, we can make a substantial contribution to it to make sure it really does support as many people as possible. And then obviously the consideration of older people equipment is something to think about depending on our funds for a future year.
Right.
So I would support.
You would support that. Any other comments from councillors?
Yeah, I'm quite happy with the idea that they're also going to get, I've seen it in other areas, Rochdale, Stoke, Manchester, where the adults have got a part where they can go and do exercise, and the standard of life has gone better because obviously they're getting out, meeting people and doing exercise. So that's always a positive for me. The only thing I'm worried about is Kirklees have a reputation of moving parts at the moment. What guarantees have we got that they're not going to move in the next 12 months, 2 years? Right. So that's for you, June.
I'm really sorry. I am struggling to hear when it's within the room. I could hear Rachel, but when it's the people at the back of the room, it just sounds like a rumbling noise of voice rather than a definition of a words. I can't hear it. So I'm really sorry. I'm not picking up what you said.
Councillor Brooks' point was that he's supportive of the general idea and of exercise across the ages. Kirklees is currently forming a habit of moving parts. Do we have any indication of their commitment to this particular one staying where it is?
Yes, they have. We have had very many discussions with Kirklees over the parks, and they have guaranteed that Jagger Lane Rec and Honley Park are both staying and in their remit for refurbishment.
Right. I think it was timely. Yes.
Again,
timely because Kirklees within. I'm talking like we're talking 5 years down the line. We can still be staying. Well, I would like it more than. Have they indicated in some time?
Councillor Brooke, have they indicated any length of time to? Councillor Brooke is concerned. Spend this money now and then,
And that's, yeah, and I can see what he's saying. Kirklees are actually talking about spending 70 to 90,000 pounds in total on those two parks. I can't see that they will commit to spending 70 to 90,000 pounds of their funding if it's a short-term venture. The life expectancy of the equipment is 15 to 20 years. So I am not expecting that they're going to turn around and say, no, it's not going to carry on.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments, queries, concerns? No. Do we feel able to move to a vote?
Yep.
Right. Can I see all those in favour of granting this 5,000 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. Any against? 1. Abstentions? 1. That's carried. Thank you, Jean.
Thank you very much. I'll leave the conversation now, but good luck. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. That moves us on to home service. Again, it's a change of what they can do with it. This has been largely, it's things out of their control. I mean, they were granted a different status, they were given a different amount of money, they got money they didn't think they were getting, they didn't get money they were thinking they were getting, and they're asking me, more or less, can they have the money anyway, and they now want to do this with it, which again, in general terms, and I think after COVID, we might be a bit more strict about, and saying, no, the applications are for a specific thing, but this has been an exceptional year. So, do any of the application is for money to improve the toilets, basically, and move from the limited offer at the moment. Do we have any queries, questions, comments from councillors? Yeah, Chris is there. Do you want to, is there anything you want to add, Chris?
Hello, are you asking me a question?
Is there anything you want to add to what I've just said before we move on to questions to you?
No, I don't think so. I think that's a fair summary, and I think Liz has done a fair summary in the agenda. It has been a strange year, and we've moved things on in order to cut our cloth and meet what we see as a need, and which also generates income for us. And now we need to make toilets.
Do we have queries? Oh, we want quite a lot of questions. Okay, Councillor Hockley, Councillor Carr, Councillor Blacker.
I don't have a question first. I just think we should support this. I think it's incredibly positive that Home Tech has saved the tech, if you like, and also managed to be so successful in raising money from the community to support it, which shows there's a lot of people locally who want it to succeed and also make use of it as a community asset. And I think toilets are a pretty fundamental element of that. And I think it's something that we should support. I recognise that it's different from what they originally asked for, but what they originally asked for was being paid for through other means. And actually, it was all about priorities when we were thinking about what needed doing first. And clearly, what was needed doing first, we got funding elsewhere, so that's great. That's good for you guys, really.
Yeah.
So I would support it.
Right. Could you hear that, Chris?
I did, and can I just add on to that? The reason why we did the lift and the fire safety area is because we were pitching for community hub, community anchor type funds, and it really was a condition. We already had a toilet. I mean, it's not a very pleasant toilet, but we had one, but we didn't have the correct disabled access situation, and that's why we needed to address that in order to release funds in terms of ongoing income in a very difficult time when, just like with all other buildings, we were closed down basically.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Carr?
Again, I support it. I think this problem we've got is that because we asked people many months ago to predict what they needed the money for, things have changed a lot. So by us being better organised, that's created a different problem down the road for all of these applications and issues. The question for Chris is, I just wonder if it's possible to be creative and use our 5,000 as part of the community share offer and turn it into 10,000? Is that still an active scheme? Because effectively at the moment, the community share being bought have doubled in value, aren't they? And it would seem.
Well, I think it's a very valid point that you raise. And the window for the Share Booster programme is between 50 and £75,000. And I'm very pleased to say that we raised more than £75,000. So there's no more doubling left. We've used up the Share Booster, which is fantastic because it means that we've literally brought into the valley £75,000 worth of money that wasn't in the valley, if I can put it that way. So we've now got the 150, but in precise answer to your point, there's no capacity left. We've used up the Share Booster.
Well done you. Councillor Blacker.
I greatly admire what the committee has achieved at the tech. The point I just wanted to raise is you've apologised for the dated quotation. I just wonder, are there plans to get an updated quotation for the toilets?
Do what, sorry? It's a bit...
The estimate you've got is out of date. Are you planning to get a new one and when?
Yes, we will. And I was conscious of that when it went in, and I do apologise. We've been conscious of two things. One is people going into the building, whether it be trades or whatever, but also asking tradespeople to traipse in difficult situations and give quotes. We really didn't want to put people through that when we wouldn't be doing the work until some point later, which is what we're addressing now. So yes, we will be looking at quotes and looking at what we regard as the most attractive.
I think it would probably be this committee's preference to earmark the amount, but to make the grant of the precise amount you need.
If that's the way you, yes, if that's the way you wish. And just to clarify, that would be pending the presentation of appropriate quotes.
Yeah, when you have decided which, you don't have to show us all the quotes. When you have chosen what you consider the best quote and you have a precise amount, that is the amount we would give you rather than a broad 5,000.
Okay, that's fine. I fully understand that.
Well, to the limit.
Well, with a limit of 5,000, obviously.
Yes, obviously.
Councillor Dixon.
Yeah, my only concern was, I thought I'm very supportive of the tech and the brilliant job that Chris and the team are doing there. Originally we earmarked 3,000 for the tech for the lift project. I'm happy to give them 5,000, subject to being within the budget still. I don't want to go over the budget, this is 2,000 more than what was in the going to give them before. But like I said, I would propose that we give them the 5,000, subject to the funds being available within the budget, and subject to getting the quotes in as well. I'm sure the quotes will come in and they'll be fine, but like, I don't want it to hold it up, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So that's why I'm proposing that we give them the money now. Chris, and we could give them the money once Chris provides the quotes with ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. And you know, believe me, we are just delighted and very grateful for the support that you guys give. And let's not forget that in the first leg of the payments to Kirklees College, you contributed a very substantial amount, and we don't forget that.
Councillor Brooke.
Yeah, just going to make a slight amendment to Councillor Dixon's proposal that in principle we do it, but they've got to meet all the grounds and give them the money when they need the money, not just now. Obviously, you said that they don't always be able to do the jobs because of COVID. So let's put it to one side. When they need the money, we'll give it them, because if anything else happens, if it's money that they don't need our money, we don't give. We're trying to give it back. So I'm proposing principle we give it them so they need the money. That we the job.
Yeah. Well, I don't know whether you could hear that, Chris, but what Councillor Brooke is saying is that we should earmark the money and actually give it to you when you start the work and you need to spend it.
Yes, fine, absolutely, great.
I think we're in a position now to move to a vote on. Is everybody in the room comfortable? Okay. Can I
Can I say something, please, Pat?
Sorry.
Yeah. just to clarify the point, we're not going to go over budget by giving 5,000 instead of 3,000 because one of the grants actually dropped out. So we've got space in the budget. And the other thing I was going to suggest is that if you agree to pay up to 5,000, would you agree that once the quotation comes in that we can release the money? Because I'd quite like to get all of last year's grants out of the way before we start the next lot, because it causes a lot of work with paperwork and everything for them to come back.
Yes, I think, well, we're about to vote, but if somebody could make the proposal, well, the proposal is now that we earmark the 5,000, we grant a specific amount when it comes in, and that as soon as it comes in, we pay it because we quite like to get moving on to next year's budget. That is the proposal, as I understand it. Are you happy with that as being your proposal now, Councillor Dixon?
Yes.
Yes. Do we have a seconder?
Can I just stop?
Oh, yeah.
The only problem that is, that's suggested that they managed to get somebody to cover that cost on that. If this happens again, we need to let us know, then possibly have to give the money back because we can't find something else.
Yeah. I think what's implicit in this motion is that we are giving this money for these toilets and not for anything else.
Yes.
If something comes in from elsewhere and you don't need it for the toilets, please don't just ask us for it anyway because there are loads of things you can use it on. That doesn't mean we won't give it to you in another grant application, but we want to give the specifics.
Yeah, I fully understand. Yes.
So do we have a seconder for Councillor Brooke? Okay. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. That's passed. Thank you, Chris.
Yes, thank you very much. Good evening.
The library, I think, next. And we've got Jenny here. Again, I think summary in the agenda is very clear.
Village Hall.
Oh, Village Hall before, right. Have we got anybody here from Holly Village Hall? No.
It's just to note really, Councillor Colling, because last time what was agreed was the money was agreed and it would be paid out when the quotation was given to the clerk, and it has come to me. So I've just put that there for you to note.
Right. Thank you. Noted. Okay, noted. Noted, everybody? Yeah. Holly Library. There is a summary here which you've all been able to read. I think it's fairly uncontentious.
City Hall.
I'm sure.
I'm sorry.
On the agenda, it's the Civic Hall, the next item.
Oh, is it?
2208, yeah.
Oh, right.
That's still right.
Right. Well, that's going to be quite a long discussion, I suspect. So, right, Civic Hall next. Sorry, I was misremembering. Last time there were at full council there was some concern about expenditure by the Civic Hall, and particularly on fire doors that were, which was taken to be a pair of fire doors that cost £10,000 and wasn't this quite a lot. The trust has since provided evidence it's for 2 sets of fire doors, and it's the details are here. It's perfectly reasonable. I think the 10,000 for the fire doors, and it might be an idea if we vote separately on the 10,000 and the 30,000. Councillor Brooke.
Chair, if I remember correctly from the full council, I think it was brought to the attention that it should be something that maybe that there's not to apply for a grant for the fire doors because it's our building. That maybe how we should pay for it. So anyway, so not a grant. I think that's one of the questions that was asked.
I think the issue at full council was bigger than that, than just the fire doors. I think there was some concern that perhaps council, and it might have been legitimate concern, that council was perhaps being a bit lax at looking at, because we owned it, we were perhaps not scrutinising it as firmly as we would an application from outside. And I think there was, I may be missing, I mean, I don't know what the rest of the meeting was. It was my impression from full council that there was a bit of concern at Fostall Council about this, and that we should maybe tighten up our scrutiny of the properties that we own, and that will include Holly Library, shortly. So you're right in what you say, but I think it was a broader thing about taking a closer watch. Councillor Hodden.
I was just going to say, I think the additional information that we've received in terms of the all the breakdown of the cost of the different fire doors, exactly what the fire doors are, what the, I think personally, I think that's sufficient information to justify the grant application for £10,000. Obviously, the cost is slightly higher than £10,000, but so I think we should recommend it for approval to full council.
I'll second that.
Right, all those in favour of that? Unanimous. Okay, that's the fire doors.
Yeah, can I just ask? I think one of the reasons there was a lot of confusion at the full council was we weren't even clear what type of door we were talking about, or even which door. And if I'm honest, I still don't know. Are we talking about what I call the front door and the proper back? Are these the external doors of the building, or are these internal doors? I just think we need to be crystal clear when we go.
Right, well, we'll ask Dawn, are these internal or external doors?
They are external doors. If you go into the large hall, so if you're looking at the drill hole from the road, you'll see there's two sets of fire doors at the top of the steps, and it goes to either side. There's a fire door at either side. It is those fire doors. So they are very, very large. One of them is 9.5 feet tall. The other one is 12 feet tall.
I think that was the confusion list, that people thought we were talking about an internal door, which obviously people have got half an idea what it might cost, although they nearly always underestimate that. Those are large, like you say, large, heavy external doors, and they will cost money. So I support it. It was just unfortunate that the information wasn't clear when it was coming to full council.
And that is partly the fault of council. Can we move to a vote on that number, on the 10,000 for the fire doors? All those in favour? Unanimously passed. Right, that's the fire doors. Then we move on to the broader, the broader sort of 30,000. And this Dawn, just for your information, because you weren't at the full council meeting, this 30,000, there was this vague concern. Nobody is accusing anybody of anything, don't get me wrong. But there was this concern that there was 30,000, and then now they want another 30,000, and then they just is this going to be endless 30,000s that are constantly needed to? Nobody said exactly that, but you get the drift. That people were concerned that we were perhaps not as well informed as we should have made ourselves, and so I don't know whether you want to talk about the two 30,000.
Yeah. So just to give you some reassurance, the £30,000 that we've already had is in a secure bank account. It's in an interest-bearing account. It hasn't been touched, barring a little bit of architect's fees. I think we've spent a couple of £1,000 altogether. So it's perfectly secure. It hasn't been spent. The issue has arisen because the prices we were originally working towards when we first started applying for funds from yourselves and League of Friends and anyone else, we were looking at a total project cost of about £85,000 roughly. Obviously we've added into the works the fire escape out of the back, which you have already given us another £10,000. So those two projects have been rolled together to go to tender. So we were anticipating quotes coming back in the region of £95,000 plus VAT. But unfortunately, because those original prices were arrived at 2 years ago, and then some of the costs that we've predicted working with our architect, in terms of the individual elements of the works have come in higher than we were anticipating. So the total bill we've got back from the contractor we've approved is 119,000. So there is that difference between the original 95 we were thinking it would be and the 119 that we've now got. So that's why we need to raise additional funds to fill the gap.
Thank you. I think again the question is likely to be raised that when we come to a vote, we may vote to earmark this, but to keep it in our own bank until you need to spend it rather than put it in yours. And not for this meeting, but where on earth have you found a bank that pays interest?
Oh, it's very small. It's not a lot of it's less than 1%, but less than 1% of anything is better than 100% of nothing, isn't it?
Exactly. So, okay, I think now, councillors, do we have, I can see Councillor Dixon.
Which contractor has been appointed? Are you able to disclose that?
Did you hear that?
Not quite.
Which, are you able to disclose which contractor you've appointed?
Yes, yes. So actually, Rachel, Councillor Hogley was involved in the tendering process. We went out to tender to 7 contractors put forward a proposal. The one we've selected is Building Preservation, Paul Finn. They are on site. They started about 3 weeks ago. So if you've been in the building, you'll have seen that the access to the toilet corridor is barred, so you're not allowed to get down there anymore at the moment. So yes, and they have, the reason they were selected was that he has done works in older historic buildings before. He asked lots of the right questions about working in a building like this, about the health and safety issues, and he was also very conscious of making sure we kept the neighbours happy. And we actually, at his suggestion, had a meeting with the neighbours to make sure that we were, particularly the neighbours at the back, so that we were making sure we weren't making life difficult for them. So he's certainly proved to be the right contractor so far.
Excellent.
Councillor Hogley?
Yeah, again, I think we've got a lot more detail, which makes it much easier for us to be in a position to recommend it to approval at full council. I'd ask that all this supporting information is also provided to all council, full council, because I think particularly the supplementary information with all the breakdown of costs and what's been spent already, the tender process, all that is a really good, thorough description. So thank you for putting that together.
Yes,
because I think that addresses, to be honest, all the issues that arose in the discussion at full council. So hopefully,
yes,
receive more favourable reception. So I recommend that I propose that we recommend it to full council.
when we say to resubmit the information, Dawn, we don't mean you have to. We already have it in the file.
Yes, yes, that's fine.
We'll be delighted copy to circulated. Councillor Carr.
Yeah, just to support it, and I mean, obviously these things cost money, and some of this work is obviously going to benefit us, and some of it was done, particularly with virus at our request anyway in parts. And I do think that we need to revisit this whole relationship about what we've got with the building, which is effectively ours. And this is exactly the same issue that's going to come up with the library, because who owns this building? You know, who owns those doors? If your organisation folded, we inherit that. If your organisation folded with contracts, I'm assuming that building's going to come to us for balance. And it just feels as if it's less than clear what the relationship is, and that it all predates me, so I'm aware I don't know the detail. I've not signed the contract, but the fact that we haven't got in full council a clear communication between us and the civic that works well for this type of detail causes suspicion and anxiety and confusion. And we just need to fix that.
Well, I think it's worth, if councillors will agree with me, slightly breaking the order of topics, because I was going to raise later the fact that we have been asked repeatedly by the civic interest to have more trustees on their board. And I think we need to be actively involved in strategy and planning, not just tipping up to meetings and ticking boxes. And the sensible place for, I mean, any councillor is obviously free to apply, but it would be very useful if there was someone from this committee who were willing to be a trustee. And I'm wondering if there's anybody here who feels able. I mean, I will say now, I'm willing to do it if nobody else will.
Sure. That's a question maybe for July. The full council, because obviously the top of July now.
Well, this council can nominate. I mean, we can have, Dawn, am I right in thinking?
It's on the agenda, Chair. What you're talking about is on the agenda. It actually asks us on the agenda to consider a further nomination.
Yes.
Item 2221. So
On
it is
tonight's agenda, yeah. Yeah.
And
And I was just bringing it out of order.
Yeah, sorry.
Since the discussion has gone there.
But Madam Chair, I was just saying, like, it has already been given right to take the opportunity to, you know, I would support them, but I think for the time, I think we need to take it to the full council, which will be July meeting.
I think we would take it to full council for ratification, but I think we're free to say we would like to, you know, nominate Councillor X to be a trustee. How many are we allowed, Dawn? Is there a limit?
There's two.
The constitution suggests that there would be 2 councillors from the parish council on the board of trustees. So yes, there's definitely room for at least 1 more.
Well, Madam Chair, I think with Councillor Bellamy help at the moment, I think, you know, she's having very hard to, we would like to take it presence on being, I think she'd be ready to get.
Dawn, are we allowed to have somebody temporary while Councillor Bellamy is ill? As a sort of locum trustee?
I suppose I can't speak for the trustees. I suppose I don't think there's any reason why they would be unhappy to have somebody temporarily. Whether or not they would count them as a full trustee where we report it to Charities Commission and so on, I'm not sure. We'd have to check that out, but I would have thought they would rather have somebody at the meetings than not. I mean, and as I said, the constitution allows for 2. So yes, I'm sure they would be happy to have a temporary person, but I would need to check.
Okay, I think also, Councillor Buck, you're being a bit ambitious, because frankly, we've struggled to get a second one. The chance of us getting 2 people volunteering to do it are fairly remote, let alone 1.
I do appreciate it. I'm just making
Councillor Carr.
I was just going to say I'm happy to be one of the 2 or the substitute or what. I'm happy to be involved.
Good.
Whether that's an observer, you know, I just think there needs to be.
We can have, John, can I ask you, we can have observers, can't we? We can have...
I don't know.
If you come back
again, that would be something you'd have to check with the trustees. In principle, yes, you can. But obviously they need to say how that would work with their agendas and so on.
As members of the public, for heaven's sake, couldn't we? You know. Councillor Hogley, you've got your hand.
Well, if Councillor Carey is willing to do it, I would propose that we accept the offer of doing that. And I just want to make sure we don't lose. We still want to vote on the
yes.
Yeah. Miss that. But
Okay.
I propose that Councillor Carey is willing to do the role.
Right. Do we have a seconder to that proposal? Councillor East. So Councillor Carr has been, we will come back to that proposal. We'll vote on the money, then we'll come back to who's going to be a trustee.
Well, why don't we?
No, we'll do it here. All those in favour of Councillor Carr being a trustee? Unanimous. Thank you.
Is that the second trustee, not a substitute?
That's the second trustee, not a substitute for Cass. We'll talk about a substitute for Cass as and when. Okay, that's done. And confident now that we're going to keep more of an eye on things and keep ourselves better informed than we have been. Can we move on to vote on the £30,000? All those in favour? Sorry. Councillor.
I was just going to say, I didn't know if you wanted a formal vote.
Yes, please.
Can I propose that we recommend to full council that grant £30,000 and give it to the full council?
It's seconded by Councillor East. Thank you. Can we move to a vote? All but Doug. Doug has abstained, right. So, yes, everybody but one abstention. Thank you. Thank you, Dawn. We're getting there.
Thank you very much. And just picking up on your point, if you do want to give us the money when we're ready to spend it, that's absolutely fine. And if you think there's anything else, the paper I wrote for the full council meeting is needed, then if you let me know, I'm more than happy to provide any further information.
And if you
otherwise, thank you very much.
you come back to us on whether we can have a proxy trustees?
I certainly will. Yes, yes, I will. Thank you. Good night.
Nice, thanks. It is the library before the loos, isn't it? I'm not getting that out of the
Yes, yeah.
So, yes, we've got a summary of where we are with the library. There have been hiccups, and it's an infuriating, very late thing about it suddenly having to be put out for public, other interest.
Backwards.
I think it's unlikely anybody is going to be interested in a single story, one room library that has to be a library. But we are obliged to put it out to the public, and it's rather late in the day, and it's not helpful. However, we are where we are. I think what we need to, I had some questions, and I imagine you will, under this second section of, considering the follow items in draft police and all the rest. So while we've got Carrie and Jenny here, can people raise what issues, questions, comments they have? It's on page 6 about this summary. I mean, I think point 1 and point 6 are essentially the same point, and it's whether we require the trustees to pay for the repairs and we give them grants, or whether we pay the repairs, which is quite a big question. Councillor Carr and Councillor Blackburn.
I think in the same spirit as I think it's ultimately our building. We're the people who own it. I think it's a lot cleaner if we take responsibilities for the repairs of it. The only thing that would dissuade me from that is it may well be the library trustees might be in a better position to fundraise externally than the parish. A bit like having a friends of committee on a school, often making most money from the school and the school can't. So that's my only hesitancy, but I still think in principle it's our building, and like any other building, we should repair it.
Councillor Blackburn, then Councillor Dixon.
I was going to agree with the same points with Councillor Carr. It just does seem that when these are our buildings that are going through a kind of grant process, it really isn't the right mechanism to do this. But I also understand that an independent group can raise money elsewhere, which we can't do. But I just think it needs the whole issue needs to be.
Councillor Dixon.
Chair, could we just say that it's impossible for us to hear what the last two speakers have said?
Okay, what the last two speakers have said broadly is, as a point of principle, if we own the building, we should be paying for repairs ourselves, but the discussion continues.
Fine.
Councillor Dixon.
Yeah, I think we should pay for the repairs ourselves. I'm happy for that. But I think that the Friends of the Library know more about the building than what quite most of them in this room know about it. Sean being one of the trustees and that, but he knows it. But they know what needs to be repaired, they know what works should be done to maintain it. But we should pay for it. Like, they should come to us and ask us for the money, I think. And like similar to what wants to be called it, they come to us and ask for some funding for it, and we should give them the money towards it.
I'm not sure that Councillors Blacker and Carr were saying we shouldn't give them the money. They were simply saying we shouldn't have to go through the grant application process.
But
Councillor, sorry.
Yeah, no, but I think that the group themselves should try and source the building works.
Yeah.
I don't want it to create more work for the clerk and the staff that we've got here if they're having to seek out like quotes for things, and they may ask the wrong questions because they don't know the building as well as the Friends do. Right. I think the Friends should go and seek out the quotes and the works that need doing, but we should pay for it.
Councillor Dixon is saying that you are better equipped to get quotes and whatnot than we are, even though.
Yes.
Can I make a comment there, Councillor Colleen?
I've got another question here before we come to Councillor Brooke.
Yeah. This, I think it's a great bigger question altogether regarding Supercom as well. I think the last one, we said, we need to decide, do they need to apply for grants for all these type of things or not? Because, as you said, it's our buildings, should we be repairing, replacing doors, etc., windows, and all that, or do we have to look for grants? And this is a big question that needs to be asked and have a proper discussion. So obviously we can't do that tonight.
No.
But I think this needs to be raised at full council, which is get some sort of clear answer. So when it comes to these questions, to these committees, we've got to define an answer because the question being asked, should they have to apply for a grant for something that we own?
Councillor Rees?
I'm wondering if a repairing lease means
You take your mask off.
sorry, the repairing lease means that friends of, does it mean that Friends of Holland Library will be able to apply for grants from other organisations that the parish council couldn't?
Yes.
Yes.
Therefore, if there's some sort of ambitious plans to kind of develop the library, that if they don't have a repairing lease, will that mean that those ambitions want to be held back a little bit because the parish council has got sort of very limited abilities to fund ambitious plans? So what I'm wondering really is the repairing lease, is it better for the future of the library and any ambitious plans that we might want working with friends on the library?
Councillor Carr?
Yeah, to answer that, the big funders like the lottery, if you want to spend money on a building, they need proof that it's your building. If you don't own it outright, they want to see evidence, one, that you've got a long-term lease. So, because otherwise you can improve the building, you can get kicked out of it 2 years down the road. So normally they're after a 20-year.
Well, the plan is for a 25-year lease.
And also they need to know that you've got permission to do those works on the building. So if you've got a repairs lease, then in theory, you've also got a lease for improvements. I think the question is whether the trustees themselves want to only be responsible for like revenue projects, you know, like raising money for activities and other things, or if they actually want to be responsible for the capital repairs and capital improvements on the building. Because that's quite an undertaking for volunteer trustees. But equally, we as a parish haven't necessarily got the capacity to manage capital repairs either.
Well,
so,
we'll ask them.
I don't know what, but when we entered into the spirit of this with the trustees, was their intention that they would effectively look after the building,
yes,
make sure it was fixed, kept to roof on. If that's their position, then I guess we would look to try and go with that and let them have that preparedness. Although it just feel off.
I think the staffing committee met last week, or was it this week, wherever it was. We are looking to reduce the workload of the clerk, the deputy clerk, and the people who work for us. We're looking to reduce, and I think, desirable though it may be that we simply pay our own bills for all the rest, we don't actually have the staff to do it. And unless we want to employ additional people or have additional hours, we're going to have a struggle. But we certainly couldn't have our staff administering civic here. So, as Councillor Brooks said, this is a bigger discussion that we need to have as a whole council, I think. And we need to weigh the benefit to us of, as it were, outsourcing to trustees and freeing up our own staff to do our work, or how responsible we feel we ought to be. I think it needs a proper look at. Councillor Rees.
Can we ask Carrie and Jenny what their feelings are? Sorry, what their feelings are about the prospect of repairing lease?
Did you hear that, Carrie and Jenny? You probably didn't.
No, we're at an enormous disadvantage because we can't hear any of the comments at all.
No, it's okay. The comments are largely repetitions of what I outlined to you earlier that a couple of councillors said. But the thing that's been raised is the need for the council as a whole, probably the whole council, not just council, to look at whether it wants the building it owns to be its direct responsibility for maintenance, repair and whatnot, or to have bodies of trustees, as we currently have with the Civic Hall, as is currently the plan for the library, to do it for us. And there is a big debate for the council to have about that, which we won't be able to answer tonight. You know, and the pros are that we would need additional staff if we were to do that, and the cons are, it seems a rather clumsy and tortuous route to spend your own money on something you already own. There has been some discussion about the trustees having the ability to raise funds from elsewhere that we could not raise as a parish.
Yes.
And that last question that Doug's was asking was, how do the trustees feel about having the responsibility of a maintenance lease as opposed to our being responsible for maintenance and repair?
Right. Well, to start, we had always envisaged that we would have a 25-year lease with a 6-month break clause, just in case there was a problem in the future, but that within that lease, there would be a written condition from the parish council that they would earmark running and repair costs. We are fortunate, and members who've been on CASC for a while will know, that we have as one of our trustees, not only an accountant, but an architect and surveyor. And he has done an enormous amount of work so far to identify very clearly the requirements of this building, particularly to look at it to ensure that after the first 2 or 3 years, we will have reduced considerably the running costs and the maintenance costs of the building. And we have a schedule already made up of the exterior repairs and maintenance that is required, because Kirklees currently will only do things that are health and safety requirements, nothing more. So there are some exterior repairs and maintenance. We've got quotes for doing improved lighting and heating controls to cut down the running costs. And exactly as I believe one of your councillors has just said, because we are now have charitable status, if we then require money to enhance the building as opposed to maintaining it, then we will go to external bodies to fund. For example, the children's section could do with a complete overhaul, but I can envisage that because we do a lot of children's activities, we would get grant aid from other sources from that. So all I can say is that yes, we are prepared to take on a full repairing lease, but to work obviously as item 6 in this list of considerations says, that we would also want to work very closely with the clerk to the parish council and CAS to ensure that any repairs and maintenance that we are intending to do are approved by you.
Right, thank you.
Does that clarify the issue?
It does, and if there are more questions, we'll come back to them. I'll do my best to repeat what's being said.
Thank you.
Learning curve. We need a better microphone.
Could I comment, please, Councillor Colling?
I was going to say, there's a comment from the clerk and there was a question from Councillor Blacker, I think. No, I thought there is one from Councillor Hogley. So clerk and then Councillor Hogley, please.
So we do have to resolve this issue about the whether we have a repairing lease, and really the reason that is in there is to protect the parish council against full responsibility. And if you compare it now, for the Civic Hall, their lease is a repairing lease. So although we own the building, we are not responsible for maintaining it. And this is where the confusion is coming in. That is there to protect the parish council from huge amounts of money that are needed to make that building viable in the longer term. And it's not so complicated with the library because we know what the costs are to bring it up to speed, and it's only perhaps £125,000, which is not beyond the parish council's ability to pay, but you still got to have that protection in law against the parish council paying monies that it hasn't got.
Right, thank you. So we are more protected with trustees
Yes.
responsible than we would be.
Yeah.
Right, thank you very
But
much.
that's not to say that we wouldn't be prepared to look at grant applications as we've done with the Civic Hall. Doesn't mean we have to pay them because it's our building, but it does. But you know, we have an arrangement with the trustees that we will look at it benignly.
And it is, of course, in our interest to keep the building.
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in this instance, we should require the trustees to have a repairing lease, as is the case with this building as well. But I think that there is a bit of a distinction because the Civic Hall was obviously the principle of both the parish council taking on both assets was to retain them for community use and benefit in the future. There is a distinction in that the Civic Hall always had this long-term business plan that it could eventually pay for itself, and actually it would be able to fund the repairs through the generation of income through renting out rooms. And we would do towards capital projects to make that more viable, and we would always be there as a backup really. But obviously with COVID removing that opportunity to raise so much income, that's I think led to the Civic Hall probably approaching us again in the way they would have anticipated doing as quickly as they have, which is fine. But the library is different because the library is never going to be in a situation where it can make enough money to pay all its costs. It will run events and raise things to cover particular projects, days, and new bits and pieces, but it's not going to be in a position to raise all its running costs. So I think, you know, when we started our conversations about taking on supporting Omni Library, it was about retaining the library facility in its current form in, or ideally in enhanced form, in the village, and the fact that it's important. And we therefore made this commitment that we would support the operational and running costs. And therefore, I still think we could do that through the grants process. And whilst it does seem a little bit clunky that we end up applying for, they have to apply for money spending, it gives the trustees the flexibility to work out the most efficient ways to do it, the order they can do things, the things that fit with the plans that they have, in a way that I think our systems and having to sort of manage it here, I think would be quite restrictive for them.
Thank you. Councillor Clark?
Yeah.
Couple of questions. Partly, I accept that if the ambition of the trustees is to have a repairing lease, and that's always have something that plans to improve.
Can you shout up, Doug? So
I can go on with that. My concerns actually are about two other parts of the proposed lease. I'm assuming these are conditions that Kirklees Council is setting. My question really relates to, is it a library and only a library, or is it a community building that hosts a library?
It's a library which hosts the odd thing.
So when they say the Kirklees can decide to close the library or close it at short notice, can other activities happen in there? If you wanted to be part of the poetry group in Honley, are you able to give the keys to them?
Yeah, we already do.
So all of that, so that the library can operate without the library service.
Yeah, and I discussed this with Jenny recently. We will query, and we need to query this because the volunteers are more than capable and already do open that library when Kirklees staff are not around.
That's my.
So that wants to be discussed, and it's possible. And
That's what I was going to say. I think I think the council shouldn't have the veto vote on whether the library's open or not.
Yeah.
If you've got volunteers that are trained. But the other thing that does cause a bigger concern is the clause 5 says that it's only available, subletting is prohibited apart from occasional hire. But if I was running a poetry group, I would be a regular hire.
yeah, but it's not a sublet. That's not a sublet. That's just a regular hire.
So are they clear about the difference between a hire and a rent? Because
Jenny, are we clear about the difference between a hire and a rent? The difference, we're talking about item 5, subletting, subletting versus hiring.
Yes, I've discussed that with the solicitor for Friends of Honley, and basically this is just that obviously I've tried to follow some of the conversation, but we won't just be a library, we will be a community resource. So it's obvious that we want flexibility to encourage other users in the non-library hours. And so we clarified that, and we can book sessions out to other community groups, but we can't sublet any part of the building. And in any case, there isn't any part of the building that's appropriate to be sublet.
I think that's false bias confusing two different things. Because it's partly talking about subletting, which is where you let somebody set up a business in the back office and they've got exclusive use of that. But then they talk about occasional hire. And occasional hire isn't leasing, isn't subletting, it's just renting space for it by the hour.
And at the moment,
And you need that flexibility because it may well be there's lots of groups out there that could use that space every week for 2 hours. For swimming pool or whatever, you know. And that could be really lucrative income.
well, yes, I mean, this, I'll cut short this because I've been a friend of Homley Library for 10 years now, and we're constantly looking for people to hire it. It is one big room with a small loo off the kitchen. It is a small kitchen. Nobody is going to be subletting them. There is no room to sublet. And most groups, it isn't really suitable for. It's very limited. So, but they tease the Friends' objective to get as many users as they can. And they already have several. They've had the poetry group for, 10 years, I would think.
Yes.
There are reading groups. There's a Lego club on a Saturday morning. I mean, there's quite a lot going on. Once the trustees are in charge of it, once we own it, we know there is one of these planting groups to grow stuff because there's a garden. So there's all that sort of stuff, but there is no possibility of subletting because there is nothing to sublet.
It's regular hire,
It's regular hire and once the one-off hires and regular hires. Councillor East, you had a question?
No, I don't.
Does any other councillors have any questions?
Can we go through each of the points one by one and vote on them?
I think we can. I'm just going to ask the clerk if she has anything to add before we go through the Councillor Dixon has just said, and I agree, we'll go through the points one by one. Are you okay, Liz? Are you, we're just our information. Okay. So on page 6, the committee will HBPC require a repairing lease, and then that I think we can join 1 and 6 together about whether we restrict their ability to carry out. We've discussed it reasonably fully, and my feeling is we're drifting vaguely towards accepting that a repairing lease is probably the right thing. Councillor Dixon.
Yeah, well, I like the idea of repairing lease, like what happened to the car. And so on the library, you have to ask us.
Only vaguely.
They would have to ask us, like.
Take your mask off, Tom.
Yeah. They would have to put together like a document towards like a request form for like say some new windows or a new door, something like that. And in theory, we could restrict the ability to do structural repairs, but that would be not in the council's, so we're helping ourselves. So we could do, but I wouldn't foresee that would happen really. Right. As long as the repairs are reasonable.
So
yeah.
Just to summarise before we move to a vote, we agree that it should be a repairing lease. And we're about to vote on that. Whether they apply for grants via committees or whether they simply submit expenses is a matter for a different discussion.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So all those in favour of a repairing lease, that's unanimous. Okay. Point 2. The payments, yes, what we pay them now and what we pay over time and all the rest. You can see what's recommended there. We're talking about giving them the 15,000 at the point at which the transfer happens so they can get on with the immediate stuff. And I think we did have the second 15,000 earmarked which they will probably need in year one. Well, they will, in fact, they will certainly need in year one, but we can do to them as we are doing to other people, which is to say, we've got that earmarked for you, but we want to see specifics. And we will grant specific amounts as and when they're needed. Am I right in that some of these are how we feel about point 2?
Yeah, I'm in favour of giving them a lump sum at the start of the year, and maybe some more money 6 months in. I think that we're quite new to this with online library. We don't know how much the running costs will be every year. We've got an idea, but we should probably get better at this as the years go by. But I'm happy to give them like a lump sum, start of the year and halfway through, and then to earmark it within there themselves to pay for the different areas and to like advise us on it, what's being spent.
Right. Councillor Brooke?
Sort of agree what Councillor Lucy said. I think we need to review it in next year's full council. Like we did before, because then they've got an idea what the costs are going to be with bills, etc. So, yeah, in the principle of being given away for maybe 6 months is another possibility, but then we'll get May 22. That we have like giving account of what we're going to be spending each year, so we've got a better idea of what budget, because maybe we need it for January next year for the budget or February.
I was going to suggest, and this may be a bit awkward, but that we might have a quarter. I don't mean as a full committee or a full council, but for the first year, quarterly meetings with the trustees, so that that we don't have to wait for full council meetings. We meet regularly as things happen, so that we can be abreast of it, because everybody's on a learning curve. And so reasonably frequent, perhaps quarterly meetings, so that we all know what's going on and we all learn together. Yeah. Did you hear that, Jenny?
Yes, that's absolutely fine. We would welcome that, no problem.
It's just a bit like the.
Right.
I can't hear you.
Sorry, are we going to go with the proposal?
Tom, didn't Councillor Dixon just make a proposal on item 2?
Yeah, I didn't give a figure or all sum. I think it says 15,000. Let's go with the word the part. Yes. The client suggested that 15,000 is paid over at the beginning of the tenancy, or proportion depending on the distance through the council year, with twice a year with summary of outgoings. So we can either give the full amount at the start of the year, or give half the money and then just give the full money. It doesn't really make a difference. We're going to get it 6 months later, does it really? As long as we keep it in reserves.
Okay.
The area.
Can I suggest that the proposal is we give them the 15,000 when the asset transfer happens?
Yeah.
Without asking for details, because frankly, 15,000 doesn't buy a lot.
Yeah.
And that they keep us, and rather than, as we have here, saying twice yearly summary of outgoings, that we have quarterly, for the first year, we have quarterly meetings.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. I second that.
Right, you second that. Am I allowed to have proposed that, or does someone, I can propose it? Okay, that's my proposal. Councillor Dixon seconded it. Are you two, Jenny and Carrie, happy with that?
Yes, I would just like to say that you clarify 15,000 the first year. We will probably need the other money that's earmarked to get the building up and running. But can I just say that after year 1 and year 2, we would be hopeful that the annual running costs will be reduced considerably. And obviously we'll give you the figures for that.
I think implicit in the proposal I just made, and I didn't spell it out, was we'll give you the 15,000. If in our quarterly meetings it's found that you need more from the, then we will consider what's needed and
Yes.
it will be dealt with.
Fine.
Okay, all
Thank
those,
you. Thank
all
you.
those in favour? That's unanimous. Sorry, Councillor Hodgins.
Can I just clarify? It's fortunate our RFO is here. Given that's above £5,000, but it's not technically a grant, or is it technically a grant? Can we approve it? Say service provision approves payments to minibus, which are obviously far in excess of
We've
£5,000.
already earmarked it and it was approved by finance and full council.
I know, but we've
It's,
already earmarked money for the city hall, and that's what, has to go through all council. So I just want to-
Even with earmarks of those.
Well, you're earmarking a big sum, but in terms of the individual breakdowns into amounts, you've got to stick to the.
Right.
you've got to stick to the
Okay,
numbers.
so it's got to go to full council, but then so does the asset transfer. You know, the
So,
asset
in
transfer.
which case, can I go around the council proposal, that at the point at which we take the asset transfer to full council, the formal taking on, that in line with that, we make, CAST makes a recommendation that that asset transfer is accompanied by £15,000 to cover the cost for the first year.
And regular
And
updates.
regular updates will then be managed through.
Yeah. Did you hear that, you two?
Yes, yes.
So that's the new proposal. Do we have a seconder?
Are we giving 15,000 basically to get the building ready and efficient? And then the other 15,000 effectively is a revenue grant for the running costs. And we're assuming, I think we seem to be assuming that
Yes.
no, there's going to be
No,
ongoing
no,
revenue
it could be
costs.
capital. We don't, the answer is we don't know. We earmarked.
So it's not just bills and utilities as outlined, as it said there. It could be other things as well.
Yes, because we don't know. When we discussed this, and we have discussed, this seems to be going on an awfully long time, because this is something we've already discussed.
I'm sure.
Wait,
Maybe I can just give you some answer and try to help out the project. Well, we support the sort of this is similar thing what we did. It's just to help ourselves to see what the council is like in the future. So it's give ourselves the hands of in the future to help out. It's just what we did in science it works.
But the
It's the way
15,
you gotta do it.
I think it's fair to say that we have made the assumption that a second 15,000 wouldn't simply be for maintenance costs. There may be other stuff that needs repairing, doing, moving. I mean, you know, there's quite a lot planned to move computers and stuff like that. So it's some of it will be capital, not merely maintenance, I think.
As utilities, that's on the report, that's what's made me think it's all that. Item 2 says that 15,000 is earmarked for utilities and running costs, they're revenue costs.
Yeah, but the second 15,000, we've got a second 15,000 that is also in.
Oh, yeah.
We're not talking about.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to suggest that we possibly do that when we go to full council to propose the asset transfer, to propose the allocation of 15,000 to get going, that we also propose quarterly reviews and the possible allocation of further funds from the earmarked reserve as and when needed. And we could do all of that in one go at full council.
We could do that, but then effectively we're asking £30,000 with very little detail behind where those costs are going to sit. And I think the figure that was expected as the annual cost is 15,000. That doesn't preclude us from saying, right, we then need Friends and Family Library to come forward and say, right, we 15,000 that just gets us going. We actually do need the money that we have earmarked, and council has earmarked it. So I'm not saying we wouldn't spend it, but I think that needs to be a separate application with robust evidence, because otherwise I just think we'll end up in
back in a civic centre.
Yeah, it seems just that we're just
Okay.
blindly approving money.
Okay, so the proposal is now that we go to full council and propose the asset transfer and the granting of £15,000 to get them going. Did we have a seconder for that, Councillor Rees? Actually, are you allowed to as a trustee? You're probably not, Councillor Brooks.
There's lots of votes, yes.
Well, you say that the advice in the further on about trustees.
I can second it, it makes it.
Councillor Brooks, you second it. Okay, all those in favour? That's unanimous. Right. So when we go to council to propose the asset transfer, which obviously will be the formality that I have to go through, Jenny, and we will be saying plus 15. Right. We move on to the news. Thank you, Jenny and Carrie, if you want to speak.
Yeah, we've still got the rest of that list.
Oh, right, we've got more of the list. Oh.
One, two.
We're down to number 3.
Well, yes, I mean, I don't think there's anything contentious about it.
No, there isn't.
Yeah.
And the friend, I know that the Friends are happy about that, so right, that's unanimously agreed. That's 3. 4, that we pay the insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah, unanimously agreed. 5, we've already discussed about the nature of the hire.
On 5, can I strongly suggest that we say to the police council that we've got a full stop after prohibited, and both us and the Friends of the Library, trustees of the library, are free to rent, hire out space to whoever they can find. Because it may, it's not just community groups, it may be you've got a commercial, a baby massage woman who wants to run sessions there. It's not a community group, it's a trader.
Yeah, I have to say, Judge, have you ever been in the Honley Library? Because maybe massage is not going to happen.
One door, should have your hands inside. The Kirklees Council do this all the time. I used to sit next to the team that do this. They hand over the building and then they try and put all sorts of strings, which then stop you from having the freedom to run that building efficiently. So I don't see at the moment, if you went to speak to library services as a commercial hire or a community hire, you can hire that space and have a conversation. So that freedom should be transferred to the new owners.
Okay.
And I don't think, because nobody's going to turn it not into the library, it still has to be retained for the format of the library. But other uses should be encouraged, whether it's commercial, community,
Right, okay. Jenny and Carrie, what Douglas is saying is that we, the parish council, we're just telling you, need to take up with Kirklees on point 5, that it should read, subletting is prohibited, full stop. And then occasional hire to community groups, to any group, is, we need a phrase to say, and there will be the provision for occasional hire to any group that is deemed approved, or some such wording.
Yes.
Yeah, not just group, I think you say.
Or,
Traders.
well, body.
Any
other
body,
body.
any
We're
body.
just saying, if you find an appropriate commercial person who wants to hire it once a week and it works, then that could be possible. So we're talking about we won't be approving the point 5 because we want the lawyers to change it.
Yeah.
I beg your pardon?
Yeah, so I just think that needs challenging about what they.
We're going to challenge
Why
that
that
question in subsection 5. I mean, we're not going to be anyway. Right, 6 we've covered. 7. Do we want to make it subject to the Landlord and Tenant Act, which would give us security of, no, would give them security of tenure at the end of the 25-year lease? I don't think so. It's somebody's home. Do you want security of tenure at the end of 25 years?
Sorry. That means after 25 years, they get first dibs. They're carrying it out for 25 years. Is that how?
I assume Liz.
I think what it means is that if it comes under the Act, then it fairly much automatically carries on beyond 25 years.
Yes.
If you take it outside the Act, it gives the council the ability to vary their decision. That's the difference.
So they have automatic right, regardless, even if there's somebody else who wants it.
Yeah, it's like a sitting tenancy sort of thing.
It's theirs.
Yeah.
Right. Councillor Dixon.
I think the world is very different to what it was like 25 years ago. It's very different to what it was like just over a year ago. So in 25 years' time, We don't know how and what anything's going to be. So, like, I would be more than happy in 25 years' time to have a library there for everything to be worth. But we don't know how everything's going to be. So, I wouldn't like us to be in that position where our hands are kind of tied. I don't think we would be doing the future generations of the parish council. We won't be doing them not the service. No, not the service, but we might not be doing them any favours.
We might be tying their hands.
Yeah, exactly. So something may change by then. So I don't think we should do that. And I'd like to know what Jenny and Terry think as well.
Councillor Brooke, you were wanting to.
I was just saying, what does it like recommend to you? Because obviously she looked into it, maybe she herself, what she recommends.
Councillor Rees, I'll ask Liz in a second.
Councillor Dixon was saying, what does Jenny and Carrie, sorry, what does Jenny and Carrie think?
Yeah, we'll ask them. So I'll ask Liz first and then Jenny and Carrie what they feel about the 25-year lease.
Asking me?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I agree with Councillor Dixon. It's a long time, 25 years, and there's no reason the council wouldn't continue the lease for them if everything was going well. But I think it's as well to have a break where you get a choice.
Yes.
Jenny, what are your feelings about?
Well, yes, I would say that we will be asking for a break clause anyway, because this is a two-way thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we need 25 years, because as a charitable trust, if we're going to go out eventually for bigger money to do work to outside trusts, we need that security of tenure at this point. So that's why we're asking for the 25 years. So I think neither Carrie nor I would have any problem with you waiving that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I hope I speak for the rest of the trustees. Sean East.
Well, at least one of them agrees. Okay. Shall we move to a vote on that we want to bring it, the freedom to bring it to an end at the end of 25 years? All those in favour? That's unanimous. Right. Then we need on to the opening hours. And point A, it seems to me, is just common sense that there was something that prevented it being open, then obviously they would have the right to close it. That there was not the availability of staff. I want us to that because the volunteers are more than capable and already do run several of them without library staff there. So that one's
Yeah, sure. Can I ask a question on it? Because I have a friend who's a librarian, and they said that it's reassuring that we do have to have a proper librarian there.
No, you don't. And most of the council staff aren't librarians. They're just council staff who work in library services. There are very few librarians. There's 3 or 4 librarians. The whole of
Well, the question I could ask is, does a librarian cover a couple of libraries as such?
Most of the staff cover more than one library.
So,
yes.
Yeah. I think that's not true. I think the ones in Huddersfield and maybe Batley are, based there full time, but the others cover 2 or 3 libraries. Yeah.
I think the difference is if it's a council owned building, then a council officer has to open the door and take responsibility.
No, they don't at the moment.
But I know there's been some variations to that, but generally that was something that was being used.
No.
But in this scenario, as soon as you're the key holder and you've insured it and you pay the bills, and if you know how to operate the system and look after the book, you should be able to open it.
Well, the fact of the matter is, there is precedent. The Friends upon the Library have had their own keys for years.
Right.
And the volunteers, and they're not quite the same as the Friends, the volunteers have for several years now been opening the library as a library and not having staff there necessarily on some days. So precedent has been set for it. So I think we want to query that one. Which leads us to the broadband thing, which looks fairly uncontentious to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we voted on all the things we need to, or do we need to vote on 1 and 2? Well, 1, we're agreeing A and quite challenging B on 1.
Yeah.
And we're agreeing, all those in favour of 2? Unanimous. Okay, I think we've covered the ground. Liz, have we covered all we need to cover? She's asleep.
Sorry, what did you say?
Have we covered all we need to cover?
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Encourage you to sit through an awful lot.
Thank you.
Daylight into dark while you've been.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
For the interest in us. It's much appreciated.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
The loons should be fairly, as far as I can see, the rest seems to be relatively undetailed and uncontentious. The loons, do we want to open them beyond the 1 cubicle? All those in favour? Unanimous. Right. Maintenance contract. It was agreed.
Sorry, can you say about the title as well? I think we should say, I'm all for opening all the cubicles, but you should wear a face mask whilst they're in there. We should put signs saying people that should use face masks whilst they're in there.
You can recommend it to, you can't enforce it.
Okay, they should use face masks. Recommend that we use face masks whilst they're in there.
Well, shall we say we recommend opening them and with the continued application of current health
Guidance.
guidance.
If we're walking through this building, we have to wear face masks. So if
Yeah.
people are walking in and out of the toilets and this and that, they should be wearing.
But we can extend it because we might wish to continue to give free sanitizer. In fact, I would recommend that we do give free sanitizer and things like that. So we will continue all the health measures, open up the loo and continue all the health measures, which will include advice on social distancing and masks.
Yeah.
Councillor Hogley.
So I was just going to add to that, just so we're clear, like all the cubicles in the gents, ladies, and the baby things, there's rather 3 doors that are additionally locked at the moment. So, I mean, we're not going to expect them to be open tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
But as soon as the maintenance contractor is able to undertake the necessary cleaning, secure the extra bottles of sanitizer that we need, as soon as possible. Yeah.
Is that a formal proposal? Yeah. Do we have a seconder? Yeah, Councillor Carr seconded. All those in favour? Unanimous.
My question is, at the moment, I think the maintenance contractor is going there like in the afternoon, give it clean, and then they're going on a night as well to close up. Do we still want to do this, or should we just have the 1 clean at the end of the day?
Councillor Hogley?
My understanding is he goes 3 times a day at the moment.
Yeah.
Next few fabrics used to go to open up and clean and then close up and clean. I think we should have those beginning of the day and the end of the day, but I wouldn't have thought we should leave the lunchtime.
Did you hear that, Liz?
Yeah. Yeah. So go back to as it was before. Opening up and closing and cleaning at the end of the day and the beginning, yeah.
And for the maintenance contractor to come back if there's, that's causing an issue with mess to tidy up all of them.
Okay.
Okay.
And then we move on to the review of the maintenance contract, which is underway. We agreed that we were obliged really to put it out to tender. This is in no way a criticism or an assumption of dropping gone. It's just that we have really failed in our duty to get competitive tenders over the years, and it's time we did. It's as simple as that. And we're going to get some advice as to how to word the application and how to judge things. So that is currently underway. Am I right, Liz?
Well, I haven't done anything apart from try to find the advice because I'm waiting for you all to agree.
All right. Right. We need to agree that we will get tenders. And this is separate from Garside. We'll come on to the tenancy of Garside. So all those in favour of getting competitive tenders? All but one, Jason?
No, I'm just going to ask the question first before we do this. Before we talk, we need to review what we're going to sort of say. We're going to pay, because I think there was a question about that we pay John a charge to get to the toilets from, point A to get to the toilets. Do we need to review that before we go?
Yeah, we are looking at the terms of the contract. We're going to get expert advice.
So we need to make that sort of clear that, to John and Robert.
Oh, yeah.
So
It
this
is-
is going to be, there's going to be new terms and conditions through this,
Yeah.
So
Well,
the people know what the term for, because otherwise, the amount of people, John getting this, we're going to take the same thing, and obviously. we share the goal.
thank you. I think this is what we are currently looking at. What will be the terms of the tender, and different tenders may have offer different offers. It is not our intention to disadvantage John in any way, or to disadvantage a new tender person. And we are seeking advice on how to make this completely fair, open and good for everybody, as you are saying.
Yes, I appreciate that, but before we go any further, we need to agree what our terms and conditions are going to be.
No, we're getting the advice on what our terms and conditions should be, then we will discuss it.
That's what we need to do before we take it any further, because we can't go and take it, put it to tender, then say obviously the terms and conditions, they need to know before they put a tender, what
Yes.
terms and conditions are.
But we are getting outside advice on what they should be. This is becoming circular. I am asking you to agree that we go ahead and get the advice on how best to put this tender out.
I'm just making sure I'm clear that we do this, and don't go any further until we get advice. That's what I'm-
Yes, that's what we're going to do. Liz, did you get that? When we get the advice.
Not really. No, I can't hear what you're saying.
Advice on how to do the tender, you have to put it to the committee to approve what has been recommended.
Okay.
So are we still unanimous on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tenancy of Gartside, the rent. Obviously, the new tenants no sooner took on their contract than they had no income. And frankly, we say, well, we've been supporting them, but nobody else would have been able to pay the rent either. And we didn't have anybody in there at all before that. So we're no worse off. They're asking for the ability to pay it in stages and get up to speed over an agreed period of time. And the rent becomes due again from pretty much now, well, last week. And they're asking for a few months to be able to catch up on what they owe. Councillor Brooke.
Can I make a recommendation to the council that as a good landlord, we say to them that we start tenancy again, we start again before the beginning. So I think we begin that, is it 3 months, and so we pay their free of charge. Well, what's happened last year, let's be a good landlord and say, look, we appreciate what's happened, we're going to start again. And let them start the business and get it going.
Well, we more or less, we waived
I don't
all,
agree.
they paid no rent at all.
But we've had no business control, but what I'm trying to say is, can we sit down to be a good landlord here and say, like, it's going to help you out now. We appreciate you've got to get yourself going now, you've got business going. Let's give it, even if it's 1 or 2 months, and say, look, we start again in 2 months, we start paying full rent.
Well, no, what we are asking here is that we start from when they were able to open again to charge some rent, and that they have agreed with Liz, or they're in the process of agreeing with Liz, how much they can afford in terms of getting up to speed to pay back some of the stuff they owe us. I don't mean the debt period. There are other debts. They've had some electricity bills and things. And then over the next few months, get them up to speed, and then they will pay full rent. So we are already. What you are suggesting is what this is suggesting.
Well, I'm suggesting that we don't pay for the next 2 months, pay towards.
Pay nothing.
Because I'm people say, well, we'll give you the next 2 months to get yourself caught up, to get yourself going, because, it's been a horrible year. Yeah. I think as a landlord, we've got to appreciate that they struggle. Yeah. Let's just say, look, fair enough, we'll start again. I'm just maybe 2 months or even a month, I don't know. But I was thinking, let's just say, no, let's not get anything off them. So it gives them a peace of mind to get the business going and trying to consult sort of be able to go to this table, we can pay this week and start with last week. Let's just say, no, let's do some substantial so we understand, where they know the group from. Because I think then go to the same, well, we can vote this week, next one can pay for that. It's going to get confusing. We need to have a set.
Oh, no, we were talking about a given amount, not it's never been suggested they'll pay what they can afford this week. It was, they will be paying X amount and it will happen regularly over a period of time. Anyway, Councillor Reid.
Can I propose that we approve the clerk's suggestion in this item?
Councillor Carr, you have your hand up.
I was just going to, was a counter proposal.
I'm just bearing in mind that it's 9:45.
I'll be quite relaxed about giving 50% for 2 months. And that will take us to June, then hopefully everything is back to normal trade.
Right.
We won't have been a normal trade.
So why is the, okay, we've got one proposal that we go with the clerk's proposal, we've got another proposal that we charge them nothing for 2 months, and we've got another proposal that we charge them 50%.
I'll take mine back and go and second.
So there are two proposals that we need to consider. One is the clerk's proposal and the other is they pay 50% and for 2 months, and then I presume you feel they have to pay the whole one.
Then it goes to, so we've got 2 months of 50%, and then it goes, on the 12th of June, it goes to 4 months.
Even if, whether they can afford it or not.
Yes, well, I hope, because effectively they've had 2 months, they've had a month in lieu, so.
You see, you seem to be making a proposal without knowing what their situation
No,
is,
that's
whereas the
right.
clerk made a proposal based on knowing what
They're
they're.
still paying, under the clerk's proposal, they're still paying full rent, just paying late. Mine's actually a full month, effectively a month's holiday spread over 2 months. That's the difference.
How do other councillors feel about it?
It's sort of what I've said, but in a different way. But so I'm second. I think we give them a break, give them something back.
Councillor Rees.
Well, I feel that the clerks obviously kind of discussed this with the tenants, and I'm assuming that they're quite happy with the suggestion that she's making. So I just feel that we need to go with what the clerk has suggested, really.
Liz, can they manage with your suggestion where they're paying from the 12th of April, or do you feel they would benefit from getting a 3 month in addition to what you are proposing?
Well, she definitely benefit. She doesn't know what her income will be over the next couple of months. All we were asking for was to delay. Usually she pays a month in advance, and I was just hoping to delay that over the next couple of months and then for her to catch up by June. But end of June, July. But it's up to the council is what they want to do.
Then it is my feeling that this meeting has kind of moved to give them a 3 month and then implement the clerk's recommendation. Am I right in thinking that? Perhaps we better vote on it. Vote on Councillor Carr's proposal of a 3 months followed by the clerk's.
I actually said 50% rent for 2 months, which effectively is a 3 months, because it's split over 2 months. So we offer 50% rent in May and June, in April and May, and then it moves to full rent. That's what I think. You take account of
Councillor,
that paid in arrears?
can we keep down to one sentence now, please? We're all, 40 to 10, we're all pissed off. Councillor Rees.
Is that, we're talking around 50% of 2 months paid in arrears?
I didn't hear that, I'm sorry.
Sorry, is there 50% per month proposal? Is that to be paid in arrears as per my suggestion with the original proposal?
Yeah, if it makes it simpler, but the amount of money we get from that unit is very small. I mean, it's not going to, we can afford to take it in arrears. So I propose in arrears, we give them a 50% reduction for 2 months and all payments in arrears for 3 months.
Did you hear that, Liz?
No.
Right. It has been proposed, and I think it's about to be agreed. Well, in fact, we'll vote on it.
I'll second that.
It's been voted, it's proposed by Councillor Carr, seconded by all those in favour. Right. What we have agreed is that we'll ask them for the next 2 months to pay only 50% of the rent. Then we will implement your plan of catching up.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Right. La 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 la. Parish statement of priorities. Before we even get, we have a volunteer with our hand up. Foolishly during the planning committee agreed that she would summarise the. She is of course free to slide off this book at the moment, but she did earlier say she has Councillor Blacker has summarised for service provision the council's priorities, the internet, what's the word I want, implications for the council's priorities, and is willing to summarise them for us. I suggest we do not spend another moment on this if she is still willing to do so.
Yeah, after what I was going to say, I was going to suggest we defer this item to the next meeting, but I'm perfectly happy to do that.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Right, that's you. Unanimous? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I make one quick comment on that, which is just that we need to be mindful of the fact that there's a proposal to potentially split this committee.
Well, I was going to move on to that, yeah.
So we need to just be mindful of that.
So
Because one of the strategic priorities is about community, valuing community assets. It's quite a neat one.
For those of you who are not on staffing committee, we are faced with we need to cut down the number of committee meetings, therefore the number of committees. There is a working group which is Chair of Finance, Chair of CAS, Chair of Service Provision, who will meet and consider how this could be done. One of the options they will consider is that CAS is divided, essentially the grant giving bit of CAS is given to finance, and the civic hall and library and asset bit of CAS is given to service provision. That is one of the things they will be considering. It's not agreed. If they do come with a recommendation on this, it will come to full council, and we'll go through a rather odd procedure with full council where we vote the chair of CAS and do all of that and then vote possibly to get rid of CAS. But so some of this will evaporate, quite frankly. But so Mary, I wouldn't do your summary just yet, because it may not be needed.
Madam Chair, can you just, Liz?
Yeah.
What is going on committee? I can't do anything until July on days. Because I'm changing on to shift on days, but I can't be on that committee from July.
I think the problem is we're hoping to feed back to the next staffing meeting in June. So we're under a bit of a, sorry. What do other people feel? Do you want to get on with it, or do you want to wait until June?
I think we need to. No, I think we need to vote on this, to be honest, so that the full council is just clarity over the committees and our new clarity over the committees. I think the best way is the council group can perhaps either write down or phone one of the other members of that working group just to share any thoughts he has about the merging of committees and anything that needs to be actioned. But I don't think it's something we want to just keep something on.
And we would be meeting without the clerk. We would be meeting informally on Zoom anyway. Yeah, right.
Anyway,
well, we will find a way of communicating if that's okay with you, because it would be good to get it through annual council, get it changed and move on, because we currently have a bit of a crisis with clerical workload. And a lot of councillors would like to think there are two committees as well. Okay, we've talked about the cost base, we've done that. Bike and bike cabinet, we had a letter from a member of the public with various suggestions, which we have not got the time to go through right now, as to where they could be and what they could be. This is, I mean, essentially we are noting what Kirklees is saying. Yes, Councillor Carr.
The letter from Tim actually outlines, I think we can basically forward 3 of Tim's suggestions to the council to consider putting them near the co-op, putting them near the tech, and putting them near the railway stations. They all seem nice ideas. The council's going to look into the cost of doing that, the feasibility, but I don't think we need to
Okay, can you do that please, Liz? Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, the following things are just noting letters of thanks and whatnot, but I'm sure you know them all. Thank you all. I'm sorry it's gone on so long, but it's been.
In order that the website as well, when they start seeing how the opportunity to do so.
And what go on the website?
All the letters of thanks.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Did you hear that, Liz?
But no,
The letters of thanks go on the website, please.
yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
With regard to